Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real, and I'm your host, Bob Gallagher. Joining us in studio, we have two very special guests. We have Sean Robbins of Ross Mortgage. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you.
Sean was with us last week, back for an encore performance. And very special guest joining us all the way from Boston, Melvin A. Vieira Jr. of Remax Destiny in the city. Welcome to the show, Melvin.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, and Sean, thank you.
So, Melvin, we asked you to come out to the studio today to talk to our audience about the real estate market, specifically in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Your focus is what, the 128 belt into the city?
Yeah, into the city. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's going on out here in the Midwest?
It's not the Midwest, but
25 minutes outside the city. Things are kind of crazy out here, but I'm hearing all sorts of stuff about how nuts the market is downtown. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I'll tell you, Boston is unbelievable. I've been doing the business for 28 years, and I've been through two economic downturns.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, I've watched Boston go through a couple of stages, and this stage here is one of the biggest phenomena I've ever seen in my life. We are actually down to a month or less than a month's worth of inventory.
God, that's scary.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and we have so many buyers that are pent up, ready to buy, and we're here and we're trying to find them stuff, and they're getting frustrated because they don't see that they can possibly buy in the city. And I tell them, listen, just be patient, calm. The interest rates aren't going anywhere, but you guys can give me a better perspective of what you think about interest rates. But I see them being where they are, and I see the inventory it may loosen up, but we need to get the baby boomers out of the way.
So they're the problem. They're the ones ruining it for the rest of us.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly, I mean,
Right.
We were talking before we got started today, Melvin, about the way things were 5-6 years ago. I mean, all we used to talk about on the show was, now's a great time to buy. How do we get people interested in buying? And now it's the opposite. It's nobody will sell their damn houses. Come on, guys, get on with it already. What do you think the problem is? Why aren't the baby boomers selling?
Well, the baby boomers do not want to leave Boston. They don't want to leave Massachusetts.
Yeah.
The reason being is, one thing is the hospitals. The hospitals are one of the biggest things, and they're living longer. So they want to be close to healthcare. And healthcare is their number one priority, I realize. Also, their kids are the millennial generation. Some of them are the Generation Y, but most of them are millennials. And those kids are getting out of college. Those kids are having a family now. And what's happening is the baby boomers are living longer, and they're looking at these kids, having babies. And now they want to be with those babies, which are their grandkids, and they want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And so you're caught in this quandary where there are a lot of them like, and then some of them don't want to leave what they already have because they've built it up to the way they like it, and they feel very, very comfortable. And they don't think by them moving, they'll find something very similar, which will make them just as happy. So you have a couple of things going on. And some of them just don't know where they want to move to.
Right.
So, there's a couple of things.
Right. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to change before the stuff starts to improve.
Yeah, but the biggest piece is that we have no more land in Boston.
Yeah, that is a problem.
And so what we're doing is we're creating what they call micro-communities. And these micro-communities, we're building on top of the Whole Foods, or on top of Roach Brothers, or on top of Wegmans, or those type of grocery stores. And we're putting the CVS's and the Walgreens and all those other things. So all the person has to do is go into their garage, go on the first floor, buy what they need, and go up to their unit. And what's happening is we're realizing that no one's really demanding a lot of space anymore, and they're not looking for the spacious, what we used to call McMansions or McMansion condos. They're looking, they'll deal with the 900 square foot place where they can just go in and put their head down, because they realize that Boston has a lot to offer right now, especially if you look at the downtown Seaport area, downtown Boston. You look at all the restaurants, all the clubs, all the bars, all that's going on, and also the bike paths that are being put in. You're noticing that the city is just becoming, one big happy place for everybody to want to be at, and no one wants to leave.
Right. Well, I suppose if you, especially if you're working in Boston, nobody wants to move outside the city and commute back in. That's a nightmare.
Yeah, this is true because even before the big dig got over with, we became very antiquated because we're 3 to 4 lanes sometimes and drops down to 3 and then drops back to 4 and it should be 5, 6, 7 lanes.
Yeah.
But we can't even expand on the highway because the houses are built up against the highway.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I've noticed lately is it's not even in the city. I mean, in the city you have to deal with it, but lots that used to remain vacant because nobody wanted to build subdivisions on, major highways.
Correct.
Now you're seeing them everywhere. I mean, they're building them up and down 495, 128. I mean, if there's open land, it doesn't matter if there's train tracks or a 6-lane highway in the backyard. They're putting them up.
Exactly. And ironically, I understand that there was just an approval to build some units above the highway, I think over near Fenway area. I'm not exact. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Over the Pike?
yeah, over the Pike. Yeah.
I have heard something about that. Similar to the highway, the hotel rather. They built Newton over the highway, which is still odd driving underneath a highway.
Driving under the hotel.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's land on either side of the highway that they didn't use and instead built over it. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
knows? Who knows what they were thinking?
Yeah, didn't they build a grocery store too?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's right
around
there.
the same area.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. That's kind of nuts.
I know. I agree with you.
Yeah, but I guess that's what you're left with if you're looking to build in the city, right?
It's open space. You got to build somewhere.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about buying and selling, Melvin? Tell us a little bit about how you help first-time home buyers.
I've been teaching first-time home buyers for 14 years, and one of my biggest things for first-time home buyers, they need to know exactly where they want to live. And they need to pick 3 different areas, not 1, not 2, but 3, because they may not be able to afford what they want in that first area, but maybe in that second area or maybe that third. And as we all know, if we're driving a car, you need to have a roadmap, and that's your first roadmap. The second thing they need to do is figure out what style of home they want. If they want a condominium, 3-family, 2-family, if they want a single family, whatever they want, they got to figure that out. And how many bedrooms they need. They need to write a wish list. And then from there, or even before that sometimes, you also need to go talk to a lender. And, you need to come over here to Ross Mortgage. And that's really important. Come talk to Sean. And Sean can definitely give you some more information about himself. But, I mean, my thing is this, that you need to come talk to him because he knows the city, number one. He understands what's going on. He's worked in the city for years, okay? Right. Lives in the city. Yeah. And the thing is, the lender at that point can tell you how much you can afford. Then you can start really laying your roadmap. But then I need you to start making a list. I need you to write a list of the needs, okay? Then the wants. The needs are important, then the wants. And then, don't get caught up in the HGTV scenario where you need something totally fixed up right away before you move in.
Yeah.
The paint color's ugly or the shag carpet. Those things can be changed.
Right.
So what they understand is that when you're buying a house, and I keep saying a house for a reason, because you will turn it into a home. And that's important. And that's what the buyer really needs to do is to concentrate on those things and then find a realtor who they feel comfortable with, who they can talk to, who they can be open honest. And you need to make sure you find a buyer's agent. And that agent, whoever you meet with, needs to sit down with you and talk about the Massachusetts agency disclosure upon first meeting. If they don't do that, they've broken the state law. And you got to ask yourself, do you want to work with a realtor who's broken the state law, who has not explained to you the 5 different types of agency in the state of Massachusetts?
No, you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that goes back to the seller as well. When a seller works with an agent, they need to do the same thing and make sure they introduce and tell them about the Massachusetts agency disclosure right upon first meeting. And that's important. And go ahead.
How do you choose the right agent? Because I've had some people even recently, and I know Sean, you've run into this a couple of times too. People end up saying, "Well, I want to use my best friend's mom's sister. Just became a real estate agent, so I want to use her." And I'm not saying you shouldn't work with new agents because there's good agents out there that are on the new side, but there's something to be said about working with people with experience, wouldn't you say?
Right. So let me ask you a question. When you met Sean, what did you have to do? You had to interview him, didn't you?
Yes.
And he had to give you some references.
Yes.
Okay. And he gave you more than one reference.
He did.
That's the same thing they need to do with the agent. Interview them. Get more than one reference. I a lot of times say, you know what? Yeah, it's great to work with your family member or your best friend or whatever, but sometimes they're not going to treat you at the level that you really need to be treated.
Right.
So you need to make sure you find someone who has done a great job. They have references. And if they can't give you references upon meeting them right away, I would really think about not working with them.
Right.
Now, if they're a brand new agent, don't be afraid. Ask them, do they have a mentor? Do they have a manager who's working with them? And then interview that manager or that mentor and ask them for references.
Right.
And that's the best way to do.
Right.
And then from there, they don't have to be a local realtor that lives in that town. Mm-hmm. But as long as they know how to use the MLS, use Google, and do the right thing, and they're willing to do the research, you could work with them.
Good.
Now, I've found over the last 6 months or so, and I don't know about you, Bob, but we've had a fair amount of people that we run into that are selling their houses and looking to get pre-qualified and move up to a new house. And they're adamant about going down the road without representation. And they say it's such a hot market, I'm going to have 25 people standing out front tomorrow morning as soon as I list it. What's your thought and feelings, on that whole process? And do you see it often?
So you're saying that the buyers feel they don't need representation.
Sellers.
The sellers.
Sellers trying to do for sale by owner.
Yeah, they're just moving along and thinking they can do it.
Let me tell you something. The seller doesn't realize that there is so many things to this transaction from beginning to end. And the first thing is actually putting the home in the market. Okay, you can use certain websites that you can use, and you think they're going to do a good job for you. But guess what? That's just the start of it. The next part you need to do is sit back and screen every single one of those buyers, and also be very knowledgeable of what to look for and what not to look for, and what you actually can look for, which goes beyond the ethical bounds. Okay, because sometimes some people think they can ask certain questions. Well, if you're not a real estate agent and don't understand these things, you don't know what to ask or what to ask for. So, and the seller, the sad part about it is that they think that now they can go ahead and go through the whole transaction, like go find the attorney and then get the smoke inspection, and then get the water inspection. But then guess what? If a title issue comes up, okay, and then they go get an attorney who's not a real estate attorney,
right?
That could create a whole nother ball of wax, which could delay your closing.
Right.
So you always need to have a professional in the business that knows the business, that understands the business, and that you trust and you can care. That cares for you.
I think I know there was a stat, and I can't place it off the top of my head, but there was a stat that came out a couple of years ago where people that actually sell on their own for sale by owners typically net less than people who use real estate agents. They don't maximize the sale price.
You're 100% right, but let me just give you a funny story. The gentleman who used to own forsalebywowner.com, he ended up listing his house with a real estate agent.
That's the one I was actually thinking of, too.
Yes,
yeah.
he actually did.
Yeah.
And another person who owns Zillow.com, Zillow gives Zigamates, well, the inventor, owner of Zillow, he ended up realizing that Zigamate was off on his estimate as well. So don't believe those websites you see all the time. You need to talk to a professional that is in the business, that has their finger on the pulse of the business.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Before we get too much further, I want to give out your contact info. Again, it's Melvin A. Vieira Jr. with Remax Destiny. Best way to reach him is 617-283-6003. Again, it's 617-283-6003. Melvin, you're, in addition to being a real estate agent or realtor, you're also on the board of directors for the Greater Boston Association of Realtors and board of directors for the Massachusetts Association of Realtors.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do in your capacity there?
With that, I actually sit on these different boards, which people don't realize that the Greater Boston Association of Realtors is a local for the Greater Boston area, okay, which you cover up towards Reading and all the way down Quincy, well, not really Quincy, but the south part of Boston, Milton, those areas there, and Randolph. But my point is this, is that we do things for the local association as far as making sure policies and decisions are done right for the local realtor. Also, policies and decisions that are done right for the consumer, so they can continue to buy and we can continue to sell. At the Massachusetts level, being a board director, that we do the same thing, but we're looking at it as a state piece, and we have I think a total, I can't remember exactly how many associations right now that make up the Massachusetts Association, but we do that as a global piece for Massachusetts, and then we also, because of that, we are don't get me wrong now, when you hear Massachusetts Association of Realtor, Greater Boston Association of Realtor, we are still the National Association of Realtors. We're still part of that. So we pay an association. So if I pay for the board dues for GBAR, which is Greater Boston, it goes to MAR, also goes to the National Association of Realtor, which we are the largest lobbyist group in the United States. We lobby to make sure that people can continue to buy and sell real estate from now until eternity. And that's the most important thing. And making sure there's certain legislation issues, if there's any kind of special taxes, if there's anything else as far as any kind of moratoriums on building in certain areas, all those things we help, fight against, or we're on the side of making sure it can happen or not happen.
Board of Realtors actually fought really hard when there was talk a few years back about stripping away the mortgage interest deduction on federal taxes.
Correct.
And they led the charge on that one.
Yeah, and we had to.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else do you cover through those boards?
I also sit on the governance committee. The governance committee is where basically what it sounds. I sit on the governance committee for GREB, which is the Greater Boston Real Estate Board, which makes up the Tenant Association, takes up the Rental Association, Commercial Association, and the other associations, and also sit on the governance committee for Massachusetts Association as well. And that's where we talk about the actual true policy piece. And I also used to sit on what they call the global committee, where we realized that here in Massachusetts, we have a huge international population, and we're trying to bring and broaden our realtors' thoughts and how to work with that, and how to make everything inclusive instead of exclusive, and making sure we make them feel just as comfortable when they're buying in our communities.
Excellent. I want to give out your contact info one more time. Again, it's Melvin A. Vieira Jr., Remax Destiny, 617-283-6003. Again, it's 617-283-6003. We got about 30 seconds left. Can you give us a quick tip for people out there that might be thinking about finally getting into this and buying a house?
Well, if you're thinking about it, do me a favor. Just find someone who you feel comfortable talking to, and I need you to write a list of it, and I want you to make sure you find and come to Ross Mortgage. That's the most important thing in this whole thing. And find an agent who you feel comfortable. That's really, really important.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Melvin. Thank you, Sean. That's going to do it for this segment. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after these messages.